Hey folks, we had a client last week that did a public service, in my opinion. She came and provided a video, allowed us, Dr. Malone and I, to speak to what I thought was a very serious medical concern. That is plastic surgery and how plastic surgery can go wrong if it's done in the wrong, with the wrong facility, with the wrong surgeon, and the kind of things you should look out for before engaging in any kind of plastic surgery, especially if you think you're getting a deal. And as a result of that post, Dr. Brown, who is sitting accused of negligent homicide, decided to post pictures of our client, nude pictures of our client, that she certainly consented to having taken by him in his practice. But he did it in a way to hopefully try to, I guess, rebut her coming out and telling you how horrible the post-operative situation was. We pointed out in that video that she actually was impressed and was a happy surgical candidate immediately following the original procedure, but that following the original procedure, she had these subsequent, like, what do you call them, Dexter-like chop shop visits into his office, where he was basically converted a room of his office, a normal room of his medical office, into a quasi-operating suite without any of the formal sterile equipment procedures or facilities. And the videos that our client last week allowed us to show were videos of that follow-up procedure taking place in an office. And a lot of our conversation was related to how Dr. Malone was pointing out how non-sterile the environment was. That was the thrust of the video. Look, it's not all about how did the surgery come out initially. It's all about what kind of care did you get after the original procedure. Dr. Brown, in the midst of him, I guess, organizing his defense for his culpable negligent homicide case is pending, which he's out on bail for. Instead of concentrating on that this week, he decided to place all kinds of things on different social media outlets about Miss Fitzsimmons. So she wanted us to respond on her behalf and basically point out that all of that last week was related not to the original procedure, which she agreed in that video she was happy with, but the follow-up care that occurred. And the fact that it wasn't clear that he was going to do not only what he had consented her to, but he actually went beyond the consent. He takes issue with all of those things, obviously. Of course, somebody in his situation is probably going to do that. He did take his post down, I think, hours after he posted it. Perhaps maybe his lawyers told him that probably wasn't in his best interest to be doing that. Or maybe he just read it again and thought that's probably not a good idea. He claims he's being defamed. I know the definition of defamation. I'm not sure if he's looked it up. I'm sure he can look it up, but I'm perfectly comfortable saying everything that we said last week and saying what I'm going to say this week or now. And the reason I'm comfortable is that the truth is actually a defense to an action in defamation, which I invite him to bring against me if he'd like. And I feel comfortable saying that because since all this has happened, since his wife passed away under his care, we have gotten probably 50 potential cases, and we've looked at, I say we collectively, Dr. Malone and I, we looked at probably 25 of the medical records associated with those claims, and they are very similar. And when I say very similar, everybody's singing from the same sheet of music. I didn't know he was going to do this. And by the way, I didn't realize when I went to his office he was going to do all these procedures, and it didn't heal right. And the initial surgery seemed to be fine, but following the initial surgery and the follow-up procedures that occurred in his office, either with unlicensed personnel or non-sterile equipment or all of the above, which is usually the case, things did not turn out well. So I feel very comfortable based on the people I've spoken to, his patients, and the medical records that I've reviewed of his, that this is not an isolated occurrence. This is a very pretty typical pattern of behavior. And I see Dr. Malone shaking his head. But he seems to point out that all these people were fine until they got their 1 minute of fame. No, they actually were not fine, and you were treating them in your office contrary to their best interests. So that's really what we were dealing with. I certainly invite you, if you want to get engaged in this volley of social media posts, you certainly are welcome to do that. I have plenty of information I can share with the public about your other patients that they've given me consent to share with, if you'd like me to, so I can point out all the other patients that have ended up in this very similar circumstance to Miss Fitzsimmons, if you'd like to do that. Dr. Malone, did you want to share anything about any of the HIPAA violations that maybe have occurred here also?
Yeah, so everybody's aware of HIPAA, the acronym. Very simply put, this is a law that was passed in the mid-90s. HHS governs this, and it's a federal law, and so it's your protected health information, your private information. And to have someone who is a provider share that information against your authorization is a violation of that. And if the records custodian is involved in this as well, that is another violation. To knowingly do so rises this to, I guess, more of a criminal matter than just a civil fine. And what I saw yesterday, there was some HIPAA violations, several, just in a couple of different posts. That was troubling to me. And I think that the public understood that. And the message here is, if you're going to share your own information with someone and you want to put it online, there's no problem with that. It's when someone else, especially a care provider, is doing that, that's when it rises to a little more level of concern. Now, if you as a patient feel that you have someone that has shared your information against your will, you can always report that to HHS. There's a form online. And then in the state of Florida, there's also a separate, it's called FIPA, F-I-P-A. It's another law that regulates in Florida. So there's actually a couple different violations if it happens within Florida.
Right, and if he's technically violated the law, he's probably violated his conditions of bail. And I'm not sure if somebody's going to report that or not, but I would suggest, if I was his lawyer, that he should be careful about violating terms of his bail, because I know that Judge Duncan would not take lightly to that. In any event, so what we've got is just a response basically on behalf of our client. Since he felt it necessary to point out, quote, these allegations are baseless and unjust, and they are defaming him in some way, I felt it was important to point out that that's not accurate. He's obviously in a position where he's no longer practicing medicine and can't practice medicine. He's now getting his defense ready for his homicide case. And so that's where we are. Everybody's seen the accounts of how equipped his facility was to even deal with his wife's complication. How, for whatever reason, there was a delay in reporting the complications he was having with his wife. There was a delay in treating her for the complications that he had with his wife, all of which is just an egregious amount of negligence, if not culpable negligence, gross negligence. But in any event, I was hoping that we wouldn't have to get this down and dirty, but since he attacked our client, we have to respond. So if he's got any more information he feels like he needs to share, he's welcome to share it, but he needs to understand we're gonna push back. Thank you.